We ask that all participants mute themselves if you are not muted. Without any further ado, Kevin Collins, Senior Vice President, New York Office Leader, HNTB.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, welcome, and thank you for being here with us for our second HNTB New York Office Associate Partners Program, industry-specific small group event series session. That's a mouthful. This event will center on engineering firms providing project management support and program controls. If you need closed captions, click on that CC button or select captions from the More menu at the bottom of your screen. Additionally, we'll be recording this event until we reach the Q&A portion, so we ask that you remain on mute until then. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. There'll also be time for you to introduce yourselves and your firm during the Q&A. As Tara said, my name is Kevin Collins. I'm a Senior Vice President and have the honor of leading the New York office for HNTB, and associated with that, our Associate Partners Program. This program is part of a national HNTB Associate Partners Program, which is focused on creating meaningful partnerships with businesses run by women, people of color, and veterans. The program is also committed to supporting your growth and success. This small group series was developed in response to last year's Associate Partners Program survey. And in that survey, we heard from you how we could enhance our support for minority, women, and disadvantaged businesses by having small group opportunities to learn more about HNTB's upcoming priorities, partnership opportunities, and how they can prepare for RFPs and contracts. Essentially, making it more intimate, providing more opportunities for one-on-one interaction with HNTB. So that's how we developed the second round of Associate Partners Program. So our primary objective here is to be practical and actionable. So participants, you all receive information that can assist all of us in building strong teams, and we'll go into that and what that looks like, at HNTB in a little bit. It's fantastic to be part of this effort to deepen our work, advance HNTB's goals, and build successful and lasting partnerships with our small and disadvantaged business partners. Tonight, you'll hear from me, and you'll also speak with my fellow colleagues, Will Torres, Vice President and Program Management, Construction Management Department Manager for HNTB here in New York, and Monica Dernan, Associate Vice President and New York Office Finance Manager, to learn more about upcoming sub-consultant opportunities and maybe more importantly, how to best prepare for them. So like we said earlier, please save your questions until the Q&A. During that Q&A, there's a couple of ways you can ask a question. You can submit your questions by chat, or there's a raise your hand function that's part of Zoom to be called upon, so you can ask your question directly. When you do that, we ask that you introduce yourself, provide the name of your firm, and a brief description of what your firm does, and then followed by your question. And Tara Daldell will facilitate the Q&A for us. So, without further ado, I'd like to walk you through HNTB's approach to partnerships. Can you bring up the slide? Great. So HNTB and our approach to partnerships really stems, and it says it here on the slide, it's really a client-focused, discovery-based sales and delivery approach. And what that means is we are very client-focused and listening, learning, talking with them, discovering what is important and what they value most, right? And how we do that is we have client service teams that are out there way out ahead of potential RFPs and opportunities, and they are learning about our clients' programs. What are the things that are most important to them? What are the projects that are important to them? And then fitting that into and doing the research that's necessary to map out that entire program for as well in advance as we can possibly can. So that's a client service team, and that whose primary job is to do that, and they're led by a client service leader. And the second bullet there is projects that are identified well in advance. Like I said, for a big opportunity, for us in the 20 to 25 million or more range as far as design fees, we want to be a minimum of 12 months ahead of that opportunity. Again, doing that discovery, understanding what the client values most, and then developing our teams to achieve that, to deliver that better than anyone else, right? 12 to 18 months for a project that's 20 to 25 million or more. And then obviously as the project sizes get a little bit smaller, that time frame, gets smaller in proportion. I talked about projects identified well in advance. Pursuit process relies on advanced planning and proposal preparation, right? If we're very rarely will you see HNTB just responding to an RFP that has hit the street. Again, we find it that is our strength of doing that discovery that's necessary to understand our clients and what their priorities are, to allow us to position, to allow us to build a team that supports that and can best deliver that for them. That's just what we found is our recipes for success at HNTB. So we're very focused and very deliberate, and we listen to our client, to stakeholders, to a lot of different sources of information to help us create a team and an approach and a winning approach for any specific project pursuit. All of that really is just saying preparedness. Preparedness is key. We stay ahead, and we find that we're successful by looking ahead, again, being in that 12 to 18 month time frame ahead of a big opportunity, and 6 to 12 months for something smaller. That's our sweet spot. That's where we find ourselves most successful, and the reason why I believe we enjoy some of the win rates that we do. Wanted also to point out that it's not just the 20, 25 or more, just what we HNTB refers to as a super mega project. It's also smaller stuff. We have several contracts with MTA, Port Authority, New York City, DDC, and other New Jersey Transit, other clients that are on call or IDIQ based, and so those are task order based. So those tend to come out a little bit faster than some of the larger ones. We've all been hearing about Second Avenue Subway and this little project called Hudson Tunnel Project. We've been hearing about those for years, right? So it's a little bit easier to get out in front of those. What we don't always, have that luxury is when MTA or one of our clients has, a specific need, like right now, particularly for staff augmentation type projects. They'll push a task order out for that, going to their roster of firms, of which HNTB is a contract holder, to find those resources. So many times, it doesn't line up for HNTB. Perhaps we don't have the resources available, but one of our sub-consultants will. So we make a point that if it's something that HNTB is not interested, or if it's large enough that it takes a team, we will reach out to our sub-consultants and query them if they perhaps have the resources. Does it align with the business plan? Are you interested in submitting a resume or pursuing for this task order? And again, if we're not learning from our mistakes and our successes, we're doing something wrong. So applying lessons learned from our current projects to future pursuits. Again, that goes around. It's more about discovery and understanding what our clients value the most. So how do we partner? You all know it's all about connections and networks and building relationships with your partners. A great way to do that is what we're doing tonight, right? Is opportunities like this associate partners program, where you learn from us what we value, we learn from you what you value, we get to know each other. So sessions like tonight and the associates partners program in general is pretty critical. Other networking opportunities, right? HNTB, where chances are if you go to an industry event in New York and New Jersey, you will meet somebody and see somebody from HNTB there. We go. Someone made a joke the other day, and WTS, the Women Transportation Seminar, I'm sure several of you know about it. is an organization that HNTB is engaged in and supports heavily. Someone made a joke last night and said, yeah, HNTB rolls into a WTS event 20 people strong. And, you know, thankfully we've got the means to do that. But what that means for you all is that there's plenty of opportunity to connect with HNTB people, to learn about potential partnering opportunities. So avail yourselves of that. WTS is one. We're also very engaged and plugged into COMPTO, the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. The Regional Plan Association is another one. New York Building Congress is another one. The Professional Women in Construction is another one. ACEC is another organization. So those are just a few. Those are the biggest ones, but there's lots of the New Jersey Alliance for Action is another one. There's lots of opportunities, and like I said, chances are if you go to a networking event in our industry, someone from HNTB will be there. Communication on your firm capacity and capabilities, right? We want to know about you and about your firm, what you're capable of handling, and what your qualifications are. So, and going to the last bullet, we have a process, and we'll give you the contact information at the end for you to submit your qualifications, and then have them put into a database that we keep current. When we have opportunities that come up, we're able to reach out through that database. Next slide, please. And you all probably know this as well as I do, but I did want to talk a little bit about the market and the opportunities and this unprecedented time that we see ourselves in, particularly in transportation infrastructure, in which HNTB specializes in. So, you know, looking out 3 years, and I have a lot of confidence in these numbers because we look at this every year. I'm holding up our office strategic plan, and I'll try to get it right so it doesn't disappear and go invisible in the background. But we update that every year. We look at the market that's ahead of us, and then update that based on what we're able to research and what we learn. Again, listening to our clients and their programs. And this year was absolutely incredible, and the amount of dollars that are being invested in upgrading our transportation infrastructure is like I said, unprecedented. So we're seeing $13.5 billion to New York State for highways and bridges, public transportation. So this is mostly MTA here, but also other transit providers and public transportation providers. Port Authority is a big piece of this as well. Just over $11 billion. Incredible investment in Amtrak, and most of that is in the Northeast Corridor, which, as you all probably know, extends from Boston to Washington, D.C., with New York right in the middle of that. So $102 billion in federal dollars that are flowing to upgrading, modernizing, providing increased service on Amtrak, mostly in the Northeast Corridor. And then our airports here, we know that LaGuardia Airport is just wrapping up a major modernization program. HNTB is currently the program manager for the JFK revitalization, an $18.5 billion program to rebuild essentially all of the terminals at JFK and the supporting infrastructure. So, and HNTB is also the program manager for the Newark Airport, the AirTrain modernization project there. So in all, $650 million and about $5 billion in discretionary funding that's flowing to our area airports here. That number looks small compared to some of the others. And the reason for that is, you may or may not know that airports actually receive a fairly small amount of federal dollars. And that's because they are mostly self-funded through passenger facility charges and other fees that airlines pay, and honestly we pay in our ticket prices but get funneled through the airlines that occupy the terminal spaces and such. So the result of all that is what we're seeing is over $10 billion to consultants in the New York market. Again, you know, over the next 3 years, and what we're seeing as far as the types of projects, a lot of projects and programs around increasing resiliency. Just, you know, in reaction to Hurricane Sandy, hardening our ports and waterfronts. DDC has a huge resiliency program. HNTB is the program manager on the east East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, or ESCR as we like to call it. Also, lots of program MTA of accessibility and providing accessibility to subway stations along their system, not just subway system stations, but all stations in their system. You know, a $50+ billion program to make every station in the MTA network accessible by 2055. So it's an ambitious program that's again and that combined with the funding that we're seeing just results in just tremendous opportunity. And projects that address equity, you know, projects that have corrected wrongs of the past, perhaps. Cross Bronx Expressway is about to go through a project where, you know, they're reconnecting the neighborhoods that were essentially torn apart by construction back in the 50s. Another good project that HNTB is looking at right now that relates to equity is the Interborough Express, IBX, and you may have heard about that in Governor Hochul's State of the State address. That's a 14-mile transit corridor connecting Brooklyn and Queens that will provide essentially great public transportation options for those communities. Right now, if you want to go from Brooklyn to Queens by public transportation, I think you either take a bus or you got to jump on the subway, go into Manhattan, and come back out. So this project essentially, you know, connects those two boroughs with better transportation mobility options. State of good repair. You know, a lot of our infrastructure here is, you know, perhaps some is even over 100 years old, but it's all reaching its current useful life. So a lot of opportunities to bring things up in the state of good repair. And then of course there's expansions like the Interborough Express project I mentioned is an expansion project. We're also working on a project for New Jersey Transit, which is a enhanced connection between the Meadowlands complex and the Secaucus transfer station. So lots of expansion work there as well. And then airports and ports. I talked about that, hardening our ports for climate change and sea level rise and the unprecedented storms that we've seen over the last decade or so. And then increasing capacity, modernizing and upgrading our airports so that they can be the international world-class gateways that they should be in the New York region. So as far as what HNTB does, I mentioned we're focused purely on transportation infrastructure, and that includes not just the engineering, but also architecture, sciences, and environmental sciences, planning, and then as Monica will talk about, all the business functions that support that. Program management is a huge part of that. You know, our clients have huge programs. A lot of times they don't have the staff to help deliver them. So HNTB will come on board and help them manage programs. We're seeing a lot of opportunity in design build, and more recently progressive design build. So that's a space that HNTB plays in always as the lead designer of a team that's delivering infrastructure for that, for those design build projects. We've got a small project, Randall's Island on the RFK Bridge, RK93 that we're working on now. We've got a large project up in Syracuse, the Interstate 81 North Interchange. We're pursuing the Interstate 81 South Interchange, and then another equity program, another equity project up there in Syracuse is the design build that essentially is going to demolish the viaduct that separates the city and restore the street grid, restoring the street grid and the connectivity between neighborhoods in Syracuse. So that's just a little bit of what we do and how we go about it and how we go about partnerships. So next slide. I think with this, I'm going to hand it off to Will Torres. And as I mentioned, Will is our Vice President and Department Manager for our PMCM, that's Program Management / Construction Management Department. And he'll talk a little bit about that and what we look for in partners and what our clients are looking for for their programs. Thank you, Will.
Thanks, Kevin. So as Kevin mentioned, more and more our clients are looking to the private industry to deliver their major capital improvement programs. HNTB has the top industry professionals and proven technical excellence for this challenge. Often our clients see us as a consultant of choice when it comes to program management and construction management, or what we call PMCM services. HNTB is leading the region's most complex and challenging infrastructure projects. Some examples include the Mario Como Bridge, Eastside Coastal Resiliency, Newark Air Train, and JFK redevelopment, which some of you guys, I've seen some familiar names, support us on. Our leadership roles on these projects are based not only on the value and quality of our services, but the long and trusted relationships that we forge with our clients. So what are our clients looking for? HNTB manages, as Kevin mentioned, staff augmentations and small to medium-sized single projects that require a traditional CM approach, similar to the REI projects that we do for New York City DDC, all the way to large program management for super mega projects like the JFK redevelopment. We do this by providing scalable, qualified resources that have a deep understanding of our clients, the work, and industry best practices. The delivery of the agency's goals is always our focus, and we leverage our team's proven performance and trusted agency experience to manage our projects and meet the client's goals. So project by project, we build upon these trusted relationships with our partnership clients. HNTB's program management approach does focus on our proven management techniques for an overall program structure and project guidance to successfully deliver services for the full project lifecycle. So when we look for our teaming partners, we're also looking for firms that have those proven capabilities and the relationships to help us drive successful results. Next slide, please. So what is HNTB looking for? A little bit more on that. HNTB does have broad PMCM experience across the country, but our clients' programs are increasing in complexity and magnitude, so the need for local resources is there. We turn to our industry partners for roles in construction management, or otherwise known as project controls, design and construction compliance, and traditional construction management services. HNTB builds trusted and collaborative relationships with our teaming partners, often through the experienced and qualified staff that we share, leveraging our relationships to be effective and provide positive outcomes and identify future opportunities. We want partners who are actively engaged with their staff. We're not looking for body shops. We want partners that are committed to professional growth and cultivating the opportunities for our teams and our firms. If you've worked with HNTB in the past, you've probably heard about our 444 service. It's our vision. It's the foundation for our business and principles and the doctrine for our successful and consistent delivery. Quality work, on time, on budget, to the client's satisfaction on every project. It sounds simple, but it's difficult to execute unless you have the right teams in place. HNTB is committed to this vision, so we implement custom plans to achieve our targets on every project, and we look to our teaming partners to support this delivery. Next slide, please. So how does HNTB utilize these skills? Our clients are looking for us to prioritize their success. Their goals are our focus, always, particularly when it comes to those major capital programs. The client is the ultimate decision maker, but we leverage our trusted relationships and expertise to complement the client's organizations. HNTB provides services, at least 53 services across 16 categories aligned with our owners' needs at the program and project delivery levels. We develop unique success strategies for each program or project, providing leadership, communication and technology plans, and commercial support. For program management, it requires an overarching approach that includes project controls, change of risk management, safety, and quality for consistency across the project teams and the different components. At the project level, it really comes down to delivery. So we're talking about procurement, planning and design management, utility management, environmental services, construction services, all the way through the end of the project, which includes commissioning, handover, and operation and maintenance. So ultimately, HNTB modifies a scalable suite of services to accommodate and support our clients' goals. Back to you, Kevin. You're muted. Kevin, you're muted.
Kevin, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Next, we've got, thank you, Will. Thank you for those great comments. Next, we've got Monica Durney. Monica is our Associate Vice President and Office Finance Manager, who will detail compliance requirements and other documentation that you should have ready in order to submit for RFPs, and also, like I mentioned, get into that database, HNTB's database for potential partners. So, Monica?
Thank you, Kevin. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be with you all. And so I thought we'd focus our discussion on some key forms that you should have readily available to ensure, timely response to RFPs. A couple considerations regarding pricing and draft contract terms during the RFP process. And lastly, some best business practices to be mindful upon award. And really just remember, you're not alone. That's the beauty of the Partners Program. At the end of the day, you have friends here at HNTB, and we want to be supportive and contribute to your success. So, next slide. Referenced here are a couple key documents that you should have readily available. So for context, many agencies are now moving to online platforms, not only for the submission of proposals, but also to house your core business information, financial statements, and various disclosures that are required for firms to propose. For example, MTA uses the My MTA portal, as they call it. New York State DOT uses something called CSS Web, the consultant selection system. New York City DDC, City DOT uses something called Passport. And what's nice about getting on board in the age of technology is you'll get the automatic reminders when it's time to renew those specific documents. Be cognizant of the qualifications, the requirements, and the timeline for the various small business certifications, which will vary from agency to agency. As some of you know, this can be a lengthy process and take up to a year to get certified. Ensure that you have your most current audited overhead statements. Usually the state agencies will require a FAR, which stands for Federal Acquisition Regulation, a FAR audited rate. And simply that just outlines the allowable costs that can be passed on to the government. And if you don't have an audited rate, FAR or not, agencies may allocate a standard rate, or in some cases perform a modified audit of your records and develop a rate for you. Workload disclosure forms, which outline how much backlog of work your firm has. And it may be for that specific agency or inclusive of work that you have with other agencies as well. Your COA, your certificate of authority, that authorizes your firm to do business within a state. And of course, the resumes and the project sheets, highlighting your staff talent and all the great work that you do. Really just want to encourage you to spend some time on the agency procurement and contracting sites to view, portal registration instructions, specific templates, RFP samples, just to get familiar with the information that's out there. Next slide. So, procurement practices and processes and the timing of those are going to be based on whether qualifications, the technical response with or without pricing will vary from agency to agency. But often a draft contract will be issued when that RFP comes out containing those core terms and conditions. And the very nature of submitting the proposal can bind you to those terms and conditions. So understanding the required flow downs is critical, both from a commercial standpoint and the contract terms. Just a couple notes on pricing. As 90% of contracts with our foundation clients are some type of cost plus reimbursement contract. And part of everyone's goal, is managing profitability is to minimize potential caps or erosion imposed on our direct costs. So on overhead rates, and particularly state-funded contracts, we want to understand if agencies have applied further caps or exceptions to allowable overhead costs. For example, MTA will cap certain executive pay compensation. They also disallow certain taxes within what normally is allowable as part of FAR overhead. Other agencies, for example, New York State DOT will issue an approved kind of rounded rate based on audited documents. And likewise, we want to understand whether those overhead rates are fixed or are they adjustable based on that direct duration of the contract. Also regarding certified rates, we want to strategize our rate schedules or submissions with the timing of when work would start, with any internal merit schedule or anticipated promotions, new hires, so that they closely align with the contractual requirements regarding, annual escalations, and also be mindful of any specific qualifications required for those staff classifications, as well as things like prevailing wage or max wage rate schedules that may be imposed. Also take note of underlying contract language that may affect reimbursement of the direct labor pool itself. For instance, MTA will reimburse actual salary rates, but impose what they call an average classification rate cap at completion of the project. So in essence, if your actual costs for the duration of the project for any specific classification, engineer 1, 2, 3, senior level, go above the established average rate outlined in the contract from the onset, you have to pay that differential back. And then now regarding like the flow downs and draft contract, really want to hone in on insurance requirements. That's a major area we want to give some time and attention to. It's like the stock market, it's just ever changing. If you haven't received the insurance requirements, whether through an RFP schedule or a draft contract, then ask. We're seeing the types of coverage required and the corresponding coverage limits increasing. So getting ahead of the curve and understanding what your firm can carry, what the prime can carry on your behalf, should be understood and addressed with all parties and with the client before we submit on a proposal. We also want to understand cash flow turnaround, the paid when paid timeline, and what constitutes an acceptable invoice. For HNTB as a prime, we have a best practice to ensure our subs and our vendors understand, the invoicing format and any applicable backup support for submission according to client due dates for reimbursement. So if that hasn't been transparent, again, I would reach out and ask the question. And then also ensure your specific scope is clear within contract documents, and a change process notification is incorporated, and that process is well defined during delivery, which leads us to the next slide. Here, I really just wanted to touch on the importance of aligning, your revenue recognition and invoicing, or in other words, establishing for your firm a cost and cash management plan. As a service industry, our firms tend to recognize revenue based on services rendered in alignment with progress, your progress percent complete, and not necessarily on a cash basis. That's really the essence of the ASC 606 regulation that the Federal Accounting Standards Board came out with several years ago. So knowing that the majority of our services are under some type of cost plus compensation method, and that our agencies are imposing some additive contract language that dictate, certain allowables or caps, like that average whole classification rate cap that MTA does. Those variables don't have a cash impact until project audit. So having your firms understand that and ensure that there's a process that you're recognizing revenue according to what you think you'll be paid at the end of the day, i.e. completion of the project, factoring those caps, unallowables, potential overhead adjustments, so you're not taking a big hit, during the end of the project, completion of the project, or during audit. Also, as part of that whole cost and cash management plan, is what I call like an internal invoice mapping, so that it ensures you'll be able to get your invoice submitted according to those established deadlines and criteria. HNTB as a firm, we send out over 5,000 invoices a month, and we pride ourselves as kind of being a leader within measuring our DSO, which means, days sales outstanding, how fast basically we're turning around cash in comparison to our industry competitors. So HNTB as a prime, wants to get paid, and we want to get you paid because successful cash flow down to you is a direct result of our small business compliance goals. So again, if something's unclear, ask. If things aren't established during a kickoff meeting, then again, I would reach out and ensure that you ask those questions and those things are clear between both parties. And next slide. Always like to end with a quote for any foodies out there. This was a MasterChef winner, that mentors don't necessarily have the answers, but they can help you find your own answers. So again, HNTB is a partner and here to help. So thank you.
Kevin, you're muted.
I caught myself this time. Yeah, thanks, Monica, for those comments. I especially like and appreciate your thoughtfulness around cash flow and cash management. And as I know that's that's critical not only to HNTB but to a lot of the small businesses. It's even more critical is keeping that cash flowing. So thank you for all the work that you do in making sure that our partners are ready to go. We've got clear invoicing guidelines to get everybody paid as quickly as possible. So we're going to transition into the Q&A portion of the event tonight. We're going to start with introductions first.